Thank you all for joining our very first alumni webinar. We are excited that over 100 people RSVP'd for this very first webinar today about education in the time of COVID-19. I just want to share a little bit about how we got started with this project with alumni webinars. We had been talking about the challenges that everyone is facing around the world and how we could best support our alumni. And knowing that you are all experts and distinguished in your fields and have so much to share and contribute to this conversation, we wanted to reach out and figure out what was the best way we could support you and how could we best facilitate you sharing information that might help colleagues in your country and around the world. And so we sent out this survey to over 1,000 of you, our alumni, around the world. And the topic that was of most interest for people was education. And so we decided that that was where we were going to start. And I thank you all for being here, for contributing to this webinar today. So this webinar, as you see from this first slide, is going to be led primarily by our alumni. So we have speakers from Southeast Asia as well as Nicaragua who will be sharing experiences from their countries and their fields that you might be able to apply to your work. So just briefly, I want to mention a few reminders before we begin. First, if you're not already muted or if you become unmuted for some reason, please go ahead and mute yourself, or one of my colleagues here at the Mansfield Center who are also online will do so. The same thing with the video. So while we really enjoy seeing your faces, we would appreciate if you could turn videos off if they're not already. We will be on this webinar for an hour and a half. And depending on what end time it is in your time zone, it's neat to have so many people from around the world here today. And next, we're going to begin with our speakers. You'll have 25 minutes to hear from our different panelists, who I'll be introducing shortly. After the panelists speak, there'll be time for a question and answer session. However, please be aware you can chat in a question in the chat box at any time. We'll be monitoring the chat box throughout the duration of the webinar. And so if you have a question immediately, please chat that in throughout this time and we'll be tracking those. After the question and answer session, then we will be putting you into small discussion groups. So for those who have not done those, there are breakout groups. And my colleague, Nikki Fear, has assigned people to breakout groups depending on your responses to the survey. So we hope that you are in a breakout group that most aligns with your specific interests. In that breakout group, there will be a facilitator, most likely a Mansfield Center staff person, who will be helping facilitate that discussion. However, afterwards, you'll have a chance with one person from each group to share out what you learned. And that will be the close of the webinar, along with some follow-up that I'll mention later. So thank you again for joining, and we will go ahead and start with Fun Man Fung from Singapore. So Fun Man is a YSEALI, which stands for the Young Southeast Asian Leaders Initiative Fellow, and he was in the Professional Fellows Program in 2019. He is an award-winning chemistry and learning sciences instructor at the National University of Singapore and was recognized as the single Singaporean in the 2020 CAS Future Leaders Program, which was conferred by the American Chemical Society. And so we are very happy to have Fun Man today, who's going to talk about tips for engaging online learners.
Kelsey, is it over to me now? Okay.
Yes.
Roger. Okay, Kelsey.
Thank you, Fun Man.
Okay. So, hi everybody. My name is Fun Man. Thank you for tuning in and sharing your time with all of us here for this sharing. I'm Fun Man from Singapore, and I'm giving a short time to just share with you what we have experienced, some kind of learning tips for engaging online learners. Now, for my short discussion here, it's going to be very interactive. You might want to have your handphone or mobile devices next to you because you'll be doing some polls. So I'm a YCD fellow in 2019, just a half a year ago in Montana, had a great time. If you want to contact me after this, feel free to add me and connect me on social media. This is again how we engage online learners. So, first question here. What do you think of this webinar presentation so far? If you have a web browser, can you go to this web link here? URL pollev.com/funman. Then enter your name and just click on an option. All right. You can use the iPad, PC. You see the numbers are coming up on the bottom right-hand corner. Yeah. Just a test, we'll be doing more polls in this discussion here. Right, 12. How many do we have here? Today we have 63 in this room. So we see the numbers going up, just like the cases of coronavirus, sadly. Okay, right, come, I will close it in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Let's see. Oh, I'm excellent. Okay, that's all. Okay, I can say goodbye now. Okay, it's a good way to interact with your learners live. You can use some other things called Mentimeter and other posts. So I was asked, what is the secret sauce, the magic sauce to engage synchronous online classroom, right? And it's all about not shaking hands, practice social distancing, but engagement, engagement, and engagement. How you engage learners through online. So next question. On the very same poll, I hope you haven't closed it. Can you just tap where you are in right now? I know that Mansfield Center has invited all the alumni from around the world, so it's very nice to see where you all come from. Wow, we have got people from North America, Central America, Europe, Middle East, India, South Asia, Southeast Asia, Asia. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. All right, so we are really global tonight. All right, great. And if you may want to share with your friends from the other parts of the world who are struggling right now, what is one message you share with them to uplift their spirit? Oh, what do you say to them? Let's say you have a family members or friends who are in a city that they're not doing so well and the cases are going up, or they are sick, or the family members are suffering. What will you say to encourage them? Yes, you can upvote it. You're always in our hearts in Montana. Life must go on, right? This will all pass. Thank you. Okay, keep it coming. Yes. All right. Good. Okay, stay strong. Okay. Now, just a few weeks ago, the way we did this class, we were still able to go on campus, but students were not allowed to. So what we do is, right, we try to make it very engaging. We have team teaching. We have 2 or 3 lecturers here, because sometimes when you look at one lecturer giving a lecture for an hour, it might seem very long. And on top of that, it's online. The thing is, you see this setting here, if you have a television at the back, it might be much better. Okay. You see that we are trying so hard to imagine there are students in front of us, but there aren't. Okay, so you see all these empty seats here. But what we have is a very nice camera, if we can, and also this television to see, we are on the screen that really high in energy. So some of the successful so-called tips I will share with you is, if you can engage them using this live response poll, if you can stand, allow for breakout sessions like what we are doing later on, all these are elements to engage them actively, right? And I'll go through these points one by one later. Now, if you have breakout rooms, this is what we do. We find that it is important to assign a member in the breakout group to be a leader. So the LOS stands for the leader of the session, that they take charge of gathering the points, and later on in our breakout sessions here, we will assign a leader to report back your findings and share with the whole group. So today is number 6, but later on we will see. And if you have multiple sessions in a class, please rotate them so that everybody will have this ownership to be engaged. And as you allow them to interact online, ask people to turn on the webcam, because it's really make a difference if you see people's faces, how they are doing, and unmute everybody, because that's how you have an active discussion and you try to bridge the realism like as if you meet live. Now, the other thing is you can use something called Padlet. This is free. This is an online web application where it represents like a whiteboard. So in a classroom, people draw on the whiteboard and look at it and talk about it. But if you're virtual, everybody has their own PC, what do? We can use this virtual Padlet and we can see what people are reporting out. That might be useful. Okay. Next thing is, do you sit down when you lecture or give a presentation in a lecture theater? I don't think so, right? So you try to stand, because you really find more energy when standing. And if you can, you know, how to show that it's a bit more lively? If you can show your whole body, that might change something. It's something new. Again, it's just trying to make it more realistic than ever, even if you're doing from home. Remember how the weather presenter present to us? They're always moving a little bit, you know, their legs are not seated somewhere, right? Very engaging indeed, some gesture. But one last point, I think this is one of the most important point. We just have to be natural, be human, be bona fide expression, right? So sometimes I had a bad hair day and I didn't know, right? And my students, you know, they do a screen capture and then they capture this moment that is like resemble a meme. So you don't say, and I'm cool with that. And then you know what? They capture the screen and put it as their backdrop, become the profile pic. I'm cool with that, okay? So there are instances where it's worthy of memes. If it's respectful, if it's civil, I'm okay. So I think it's okay to let your audience know that you can have a bit of fun here, because we are just human, right? In terms of Christ, we are together in this. So as a summary, these are just a few tips you might want to use to engage learners online to be more active learners. So asking them questions using some online poll, live responses, try to stand if you can, show your face, show your body, turn on the webcam, right? Have a breakout groups, like small discussion groups. Allow your kids, cats or dogs to be behind you. Just make sure they're not so noisy, okay? But it's very real. And make it, instill confidence in your people. Send a message like how you did just now. Remember, this is what you tell people through the screen. Okay, we'll get through this together. So with that, I thank you very much. This is my team. Without a team, you know, I can't be doing all this. So I really give appreciation to them. And again, you can tune in more to see a lot of all this follow-up media that I do for my classroom in Singapore. So we'll overcome this COVID-19 together, and from all around the world supporting this endeavor. So thank you very much. Stay healthy and safe.
Thank you so much, Funman, for sharing tips for online learners and teaching tips. I know that I definitely learned some things there as well. And I'd like to remind people that they can chat in questions at any time, and that we will be taking note of those questions, and we'll bring some of them up during the question and answer session later. So I would like to move on to our next presenters. Our next presenters are actually co-presenting on the topic of supporting at-risk students and promoting equal access to education. And the first speaker is Aaron Matthew from Malaysia. And Aaron believes that it is his mission to encourage and develop youth to be the best that they can be, and to do as much good as they can for others. He currently serves as the head of Department for Employability at Dignity for Children Foundation, which is an NGO in Malaysia, and was also, like Funman, from the Waisili Professional Fellows Program in 2019. So I welcome Aaron and his presentation next.
Hi everyone, my name is Aaron. Thank you very much, Kelsey. I guess to like to begin this presentation by just asking everyone, if they can, just close your eyes. So just would like to ask everyone to close your eyes and walk with me through a day in the life of a 16-year-old that I teach. So you now imagine that you live in a home about the size of half a school bus. And right now, you don't have a bank account and your parents can't go to work because of the current crisis. All the businesses are closed, with the lockdown in the country, the quarantine, and you're at home 24/7, so you can't go to school either. There are many people at home, and while it's good to spend time with your family, it can get quite noisy sometimes because you don't have your own space to do your work or to do your homework. You share space with everybody else. You're not from that country, and money has run out a month ago. So you don't have enough money for food, rent, or even for phone credit. So no calls, internet, not able to do anything with your phone. You don't know when this crisis is going to end, and your parents really can't help you much with your schoolwork because they themselves didn't get an education. So you can open your eyes now, and that's the life of some of my students. So as you look in this picture, these are my students. On the left, on a camp that we went for right before the COVID-19 crisis. And on the right are the students in my school who we did a Zoom call together. But the reality is, for us to get to a place where we're able to help all of them, comes with the fact that they have all this reality at home with their parents and in the place that they stay. And the fact is, many of us adults working, middle income, even we are struggling with the COVID-19 crisis. You know, sometimes I'm sure some of you can relate. If you sleep late, you wake up late, you feel like you don't really know what to do with your day. What more young teens who are already underprivileged and are behind? So during this time, I believe what is most important is helping them have stability and to be emotionally, mentally, and socially well. So I teach English mostly to migrants and refugees. But even though I'm the English teacher, right now I believe more than anything, I just want them to feel stable and well. And one of the main things we have done for our students is to help them connect with their teachers and their fellow friends. So if you look at the next slide, you'll see some of the things that we have done with our students. And what we have used is we've used Call, WhatsApp, Zoom, and Google Classroom. But here's the reality. A lot of our students don't have good internet, or some of them don't even have internet at all. And maybe some of you, if you teach, you can relate. So one of the first things we did was in the first week of when our country went into a lockdown where we can't leave our homes except for food or essential things, what we did was we called all our students. So we called the parents first, because usually the policy is that we call the parents. But the problem is, a lot of times when we call the parents, because the parents don't speak very good English, we call the parents like, "Hi, my name is Teacher Aaron, I'm calling from Dignity." They're like, "Oh, teacher," they just pass it to their child. And so usually we'll just straight end up speaking to the child, who will translate to the parents. We call them and check with them, are they okay, are they doing well? And so most of them said, "Teacher, my internet's gonna finish, or I don't have very good internet." And so what we did is we partnered with a company. So one of the corporate companies in Malaysia, we partnered with them, and we got SIM cards for all our students who needed it. And so in total, we got 200 free SIM cards. We got the SIM cards, we put them in the envelopes, and we sent out to all our students who needed it. And so now many of them got the SIM card and they have access to good internet, about 40 gigs of internet for that plan. And it's free for them. On top of that, for some of them who have the internet but ran out, we also started a fund where the public can donate. And we use that money to reload for our students if they need a top up for their phone. And so that's one way, because that's the reality. We are serving students who don't have very good internet. And so we are doing our best to bring them to a place where they can connect. And so aside from calling, we use WhatsApp, Zoom, and Google Classroom. I'm going to focus on WhatsApp because, again, especially if you come from a place where your students don't have very good internet, WhatsApp is really good. So just texting and photos, you can do a lot. So we have daily check-ins where we use an emotion wheel, and we just get them to share how they're feeling. Let's say I feel sad today, I feel unhappy, or I feel a bit angry, I feel happy. If you look at the middle picture, you can see that actually one of the activities that we did with our students, where we told them to just take a picture using anything you could, like a makeshift mask, anything at all. So one of my students got a big tray and used that as a mask. On the left, you see one of the brain teasers that we did. So we also use brain teasers, riddles, jokes, activities, anything to engage them, and for them just to have a sense of fun and to be able to connect with each other. And even if you see on the right is a Zoom call that I did with my students. And again, just to check in with them, very short call, like 20, 30 minutes, because again, because we understand internet is a bit difficult, but just check in with them and see if they're doing okay. And so the last thing I want to share is another thing we're doing, which is we got them to do a performance, and we're getting them to submit either videos or photos or whatever they can, and we're going to share with all their friends, because we just want them to connect with each other, to feel like even though this crisis is difficult, that we're still there for them. So that's my sharing for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much. I'm going to pass the time to Toby.
Thank you so much, Aaron, for sharing that. And one of the reasons that we wanted to start with education is so much that we're hearing from your countries, as well as in the United States, about the challenges of reaching underserved students. I would like to add a reminder. I put this in the chat, but if you are taking screenshots of these presentations as you go, please do not screenshot any of the photos of Aaron's students. They're beautiful slides and there's a lot of information, but we ask that you honor the students' privacy as Aaron was sharing some intimate details about his community. So thank you everyone for that. So next I would like to go to Toby Padawipas from Thailand. Toby is also a Professional Fellows alumni, and he was from 2018. Toby's currently working at an NGO called Action Aid Thailand Foundation as an education project manager. And in his work, he focuses on increasing civil society engagement to improve the quality and sustainability of small schools in rural Thailand. And so thank you, Toby, for starting your presentation on supporting equal access to education.
Okay, thank you, Kelsey, so much for the introduction. So basically, I think as Aaron already presented about the situation overall, how struggling students and learners are facing at the moment during the COVID. So basically, I would like to go back a little bit on the principle, the basic principle that as an educator or as a change maker all over the world, need to focus on is the principle of the rights to education is a basic human rights. And that would relate it to one of the sustainable development goals, the goals number 4 for quality education. This is not supposed to talk about only the young student, but all the kind of like learners and the landscape of how as an educator or learners can, join the public services that the government as a duty barrier should provide it with the affordable amount, that everyone can access. So basically, during the pandemic period of time and the outbreak, there's kind of like the inequality issues and, some of the issues that we may never thought of before that has been arose. For example, like the budget and spending, how government was spending on education budget. Are they going to cut down some of the budget to, using or misuse during this period of time? And how is the school mitigate to this situation during the school lockdown and school closed and everything? Regression of learning, some of you may heard the term summer slide, that when the student take a kind of like the longer period of time during the break, and then when they get back to the school, that would affect to their learning ability. Food security, of course, the lack of the sufficient food while the parents are unemployed. domestic violence, that would increase the violence in the households, and sexual abuse as well. Drop out, that would be the end that we will see in the next couple of months, that when the school reopen, we will see this amount tends to be increased. So basically, there's a lot of inequality happening in our education, and it is undeniable that we should talk about the public policy, because the government needs to be taking care of every single citizen, upon our tax paying, amount that we pay. So then the most vulnerable are the, urban poor, kind of like children or learners in the poor community, that they are facing this kind of challenges during, throughout the time. If we can see the next slide. So then the next slide would say a little bit about the call to action. I wouldn't go through in details of this, because this kind of like the more likely to be the policy advocacy kind of movement that we are trying to persuade and, propose the demand to the government and local authorities in terms of like managing the local education to be more responsive to each of the students. As Funman mentioned about that, there is an online approach, and Aaron also kind of like using some of the approaches to keep connected with the students. But there are a gap as well, that some of the students in the very poor community or ethnic minority, they cannot access to those kind of infrastructures. Even they don't have television at home, don't talk about Wi-Fi or like some other things like smartphone or tablet. They don't have this kind of stuff. They don't even know how to use like computer, because there is just only 2 broken computers at the school. So basically, we might need to reconsider how we could conduct the continuity of learning at school, and we need to urge the school to reopen as soon as possible with the high standard of hygiene mitigation to cope with this period. Because otherwise, there would be like more than millions of students, particularly in Thailand, would be lacking of the access to this opportunity. So basically, I would like to propose that as this period is a game changing. If you as an educator or over the world as a global community, if we would like to change or propose something during this period of time for the education, please do, and please act and speak out, because this is the time for the change. This is the time for you to speak out and like use your voice in terms of like revolving and do the revolutions and like education in your kind of like community. So basically, this is kind of thing that we need to concern on during this period of time of the COVID. This is overall my presentation, and we can discuss on in the breakout group.
Thank you so much, Toby, for sharing more on that topic. And so next we would like to go to Ivan Cordovilia. Ivan is from the Philippines, and he is following up on this subject to talk about alternative ideas to online education, especially for those students who don't have access. So Ivan Christopher Cordovilia is a fall 2019 academic fellow from the Waisili, or the Young Southeast Asian Leaders Initiative program. And Ivan is currently working as a full-time senior high school teacher and also a part-time university instructor in the Philippines. So we'll let Ivan take it away now.
Okay, thank you so much, Kelsey. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. Mabuhay. So in this time of we have a struggle in providing learning to our students at this time, because everyone around the world did not really expect that this pandemic could happen this year. But there's already a lot of move being done, which is also doing online learning. But in providing education in the time of COVID-19, we should reach from end to end of the socio-economic class spectrum. Meaning, if the option of online learning is off the board for certain number of learners, we should not discriminate or disregard them just because they cannot afford or they don't have the capacity to connect or to invest in online learning. So as an educator myself, there's really a big concern when the Department of Education here in our country and the Commission of Higher Education said that the option of bringing learning to our students should only be through the online platform. And as a person who really worked in the grassroots level, meaning I have engaged with students who are impoverished and who are living in areas where even a cell phone signal or cellular signal is not available, we need to also take into consideration what these students really need in this time. So in online learning, only the upper middle class to upper class can truly afford this. But the lower middle class to lower class needs an option to be able to have learning in a way where it is not giving, it's not pulling them financially and also logistics wise. So in offline, if we're really going to look at in our age of today, that is the reality. Not everyone can go to online learning. So as an educator, here are some things that we are already doing in our sector. Next slide, please. Okay, so here are the offline learning options that we have. The number one option that we have is self-teaching modules. These self-teaching modules contain capsulized lessons. When you say capsulized, these are lessons that are summarized in order for it to be able to fit in packets that would be sent out to the students who are in areas that cannot access online learning. So what we usually do, what we are doing in the university that I am teaching here right now is that our university became a learning courier service. So we send these packets to our students containing capsulized lessons with assessment that is connected to these capsulized lessons. When we say capsulized, in doing capsulized lessons, we tend to make it simpler and make the understanding easier in the level of the students. When we are in the classroom, a lot of people would say that we want the students to discover the learning. But in this time, in this self-teaching modules, we are giving the learning to the students. We're giving it to them readily through these capsulized lessons. On the on-air or radio platform, usually the lessons that are taught here are the language, social sciences, and the arts, because it's easier to put this into discourse. So in online radio platforms, we connected with local radio stations, national and local radio stations in our country in order to give discussions and different learnings. Because if we are going to look at it, some competencies or learnings in different parts of, or in different fields in our country, like in university or even in high school or like basic education, some of them have the same competencies. So it would be an opportunity for experts around your country or around the world that they could be able to share through radio programs. Because because a lot of people who are in the lower class or those who are in impoverished areas usually rely on radio or radio for information. So that's why we really put into consideration these options, the self-teaching modules and on-air radio learning. But these are just some of the practical ways that we could really do offline learning, because after this, I would like to hear some of the suggestions that you guys have, because, you know, collaboration has no borders. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Ivan, for sharing all of that information. And thank you all as you're chatting in questions. These are great questions that I look forward to sharing with the group later. And also hopefully that you'll discuss in your breakout groups in a little while. So now I would like to go to our next speakers. And next we have Kenya Obando, and she's from Nicaragua. And then we also have Sandy Ferdiensa, who is from Indonesia, and they are going to talk about an alumni project that they launched together after their program in the study of the U.S. Institutes for Educators, also known as SUSE. And they are going to talk about their cultural exchange project that they are continuing through the pandemic, and will share lessons learned and how they did that project. So first, I'd like to go to Kenya. And Kenya Obando teaches and coordinates teaching English as a foreign language at the Universidad Centroamericana in Managua, Nicaragua. And she was in the 2016 study of the U.S. Institutes for Secondary Educators. So Kenya, please go ahead and take it away with your presentation and slides.
Thank you so much, Kelsey. Hello, everyone. So I think that most parts of the world, most teachers and institutions were taken by surprise by this pandemic, right? So we've had, as teachers, we've had to make adaptations to our lessons, to our programs, in order to face this situation right now. So before this pandemic, Sandy and I thought of connecting our students by sharing some of their intercultural information as part of their groups. So we had some things in common, like we both had TEFL students teaching English as a foreign language students who are in their sophomore year, and their age range is between 18 and 22 years old, and both of our groups are in a pre-intermediate level of English, right? So we thought it would be a good idea to encourage our learners to learn from the different cultures of these two countries, right? So we have been trying to work in a collaboration since we participated in the SUSE program, and we thought it would be a very important opportunity to do it now, right? However, right, with this pandemic, we've had to make some changes, some adaptations. Next slide. Okay, thanks. So originally we thought that it would be important that our students develop their intercultural communication, because they're going to be future English language teachers. This is a key element, and they have to be able to communicate with people from different parts of the world, and learning about the culture of the language they're learning is also part of their intercultural communication, right? So we originally thought as our objectives that we wanted our learners to develop their intercultural awareness, as well as to enhance their technological literacy by using different apps and websites, right? Like Edmodo, and using WhatsApp, and using different other apps. Also, it would be important that they share their opinions and their ideas about the English language teaching context in both of their contexts, right, in Indonesia and Nicaragua. Hopefully build some friendship between our students, or both of our groups. And as we made different changes, it would be important that this project would help them reduce some anxiety related to the COVID pandemic, right? So how, or let's say why is this important? Why is this project more relevant now? As we were implementing the project, we found out that it was like the best time to do it now, right? Next slide, please. Well, students have been able to recognize that others are facing similar challenges, just as they are, other students, right? They have also been able to develop a sense of belonging to a bigger online community, because they know that they are part of all of this movement of online education that is growing up nowadays because of this pandemic. They have been able to reduce negative attitudes and thoughts, about what is going on in the world, because most of the time when they share what they're going through with other people who are facing similar challenges, they feel more connected and they feel more supported. They have been able to connect with people from different culture and exchange ideas about their cultures, and people who have similar expectations as well. Even though they come from different backgrounds, they have similar expectations in terms of their future career, as they're both going to be English language teachers. And besides, it's fun, right? Nowadays that we're reading so many bad news around the world, so it's fun and rewarding for them to exchange information about cultural aspects, about different ideas in English, and they're practicing their English as well, right? So these are some of the elements why this type of collaboration, right, that we're promoting in our group. So the idea of the online collaboration is that we created an Edmodo group so that our students could meet there, and then they were put together into smaller groups, and they would use the storytelling strategy in order to put together one story about why they would they are planning, or they're starting to become an English language teacher, and also to find what differences and what similarities they have in their language, in their countries for English language teachers, right? What challenges they have. So I think this has been able to bring students together and to help them share some of the challenges, but also some of the expectations that they have for their future career. And in this time, it's like for us, it has been like the best time, because they are busy and they are like working together in order to put this project, together, and to they're like looking for different resources and putting photos and also videos. So they have been able to encourage teamwork as well. So I think it's been very successful for our learners to be engaged in this type of collaboration, online collaboration with students from Indonesia. Now I'm going to go with Sandy, who's going to talk about more details.
Thank you so much, Kenya, for sharing the side from Nicaragua and introducing your project. So we'd like to go to Sandy Ferdienza, who was also in the study of the U.S. Institute for Educators program, and he is going to talk about this cultural exchange project from the side of Indonesia. And Sandy is an English teacher at the Institute Agama Islam Negeri, Jember, which is IAIN in Indonesia. And his academic interests include English language teaching methodology, technology-enhanced language learning, as well as teacher professional development. So Sandy, I will let you take it from here.
Thank you very much, Kelsey. Hello, everyone. Good evening from Indonesia. So as a part of our project, the students will create the intercultural digital storytelling. So what is digital storytelling? Digital storytelling is an art of storytelling that is mediated by digital tools. So the students draft the story, and then together with the groups, and then they develop the story and continue with visualizing the story itself, and then put together with technological tools such as Photo Story 3, something like that. So, but yeah, of course, during this online collaboration, there are several challenges that we could identify. The first one is time difference. As Kenya probably mentions, that we are like more than 10,000 miles apart. So we have extremely time difference that could hamper the students' communication and interactions during the project. And the second one is the challenge is we have totally socio-cultural backgrounds, the difference of socio-cultural backgrounds. The students in Indonesia speak like 3 languages, one indigenous language and one formal language used for people in Indonesia to communicate. And the last one is English as a foreign language. And it seems that the students from Nicaragua also speak more than 2 languages. So that's why
Sandy, I'm going to jump in here just from the technology side and an illustration of things that happen during Zoom webinars. I can't hear you very well, and some other participants cannot. If you can try getting maybe closer to your microphone. Thank you.
So thank you very much. Okay, let me continue with the challenges. So we have extremely time difference between Indonesia and Nicaragua. It's like more than 13 hours. While the students in Nicaragua are still sleeping, the students in Indonesia start learning at school. So the same things, when the students in Indonesia probably go to sleep and the students in Nicaragua continue to study. To cope with these situations, the students and the facilitators make the schedule that comfortable for the students. The second one is another challenge that the students found during the collaboration is that we have a different socio-cultural background. So like Indonesia, the students speak more than 2 languages, 1 indigenous language and 1 formal language, Indonesia, and 1 English as a foreign language. And also another challenge that the students might find is that lack of instructional procedures as well as the access of internet. As the other speakers have mentioned, that one of the main source in doing online collaboration is the access of internet and also technology. But a part of the challenges, we also have very important results from our project. The first one is meaningfulness, meaning that the students learn the language by interacting with someone from another country who also practice their English, and they also make a digital storytelling project in English. So it becomes the project that very meaningful for the students to participate. And the second one is the students also learn about the culture. You know, because the students in Nicaragua from the reflections form that we share, the students from Nicaragua understand that the Muslim Indonesia doing fasting during this month. And then the second one is the students learn about tolerance. They learn how to be patient because there is a much delay during the conversations, and also tolerance in terms of socio-cultural difference. And also they learn about the sympathy because one of the students also share that the other students from Nicaragua mentions about that they like some accidents, and then the students show the sympathy for that. So it kinds of giving the students a springboard for them to show how to express sympathy. And the last one is optimism, because we did this the project during the pandemic of COVID-19. The students learn how to be optimists through sharing stories, sharing some interests that they like, and also they share motivations and also encouragement during this pandemic that this help passions. The next slide, please. So yeah, as the conclusions of our project, there are 4. The first, developing an online collaboration has enabled the participants to reflect on the use of technology for educational purposes. As Kenya mentions, that she thought about pedagogy, general pedagogy in English that includes technology and pedagogical content knowledge. the students learn how to create digital storytelling. It means that they can learn as well as to practice how to use technology in their learning. And the second one is to mediate teachers and students from two different cultural and geographical backgrounds to gain a lived experience, because they communicate with someone from different cultural backgrounds. And the third one is to communicate using language which is not their mother tongue. Yeah, as I mentioned before, that the project becomes meaningful because the students can practice and interact with someone completely in English. And the last one is to share their experience in facing COVID-19 and motivate each other that pandemic will end soon. Yeah, I think that's all. Thank you very much. Maybe we can continue with discussion in the group.
Thank you, Sandy, and also Kenya, for sharing about your alumni project and how you're carrying it through COVID-19 and the pandemic. I think one thing, especially that this group understands well, given the value that all of you place on cultural exchange, is the importance of coming together as a community at this time. And I think the fact that Sandy and Kenya are taking really advantage during what is a very challenging time and a tendency to distance ourselves to come together and to do that in a way that enhances the learning of their students. So thank you for sharing about that. Now we are going to go into the question and answer session, and thank you for those of you who've been chatting in your questions. Please continue to do so, and we will bring those up as they come. So I am going to bring up one of the first questions from earlier, which really could go to anyone in our panel, but I think is something that Aaron had touched on. And the question is, what are activities that your learners really enjoy doing on WhatsApp? And I think I would open that up to other platforms as well. If Aaron or one of the other panelists wants to take that.
Aaron, go.
Sorry, Kathy, I missed that. Sorry.
So questions that your students really enjoy doing, activities that they enjoy doing on WhatsApp, or potentially another platform.
Some of the things that my students really enjoy are usually the things that they enjoy the most are anything that involves photos or getting them to answer brain teasers. So usually when we ask them to do like a riddle or a joke or a brain teaser, like engagement is really quite high, and they really enjoy it because it's something that's fun and they get to talk to their friends about it. Or if we ask them to do like taking a picture, for example, like take a picture of where do you study, or take a picture of where do you eat. We even had one colleague, and this was really hilarious. We had one teacher who took a photo where he asked them to put their hand up, and I don't have a photo with me, but if you can imagine, where you use your hand and you take a picture of an object, something that's far away, and you take it with your index finger and thumb, and you take a picture. And it was really funny to see how students could be creative to take different things around their house or different objects. So yeah, usually that's where we get the highest engagement over WhatsApp. For other media, usually it's videos or photos. We even, just last week, we got them to try doing like a TikTok challenge, because one of the things we're trying to get is for them to do things that interest them. So things like music or things like their talents. So we got them to team up with a friend and to take a video and then to share it in the group. That was really fun. Not everybody could do it because, again, understandably, there's a challenge of technology for some of our students, like internet, things like that. But the people who did do it, it was really, really entertaining. And even the other students, they comment, they encourage their friends. That went really well.
Okay, maybe I can pitch in a little bit. Is it okay? I just have a little bit of thing.
Please.
I'm gonna type something on the chat. I think, well, the things I shared, how to interact with learners live. I think it's also important that when you meet them for the first time, and the students meet everybody for the first time, there's a bit of like a stranger kind of feel, like nobody wants to step up and say, hi, I'm I'm who, and then where are you from? It's a bit hard to break the ice. So I thought that this little game is called Scribble. It's free. .io. People just draw something and you take turn and try to guess what is it, and you have a bit of laugh. This is how you break the ice and know each other. And so that all those online platforms that when you poll the students, when you break on the sessions, then it is much better. Over.
Thank you, Fun Man. I appreciate when you say that you're done. This helps on Zoom. Communication is very different. So the next question will go to Ivan. And Ivan, the question is about your on-air radio public learning opportunity. And the question is about what is your agenda like and how do learners follow up and perceive the lesson without getting extra support? Or maybe they do get extra support, if you can explain that.
For on-air lessons that we are going to conduct, the initial plan that we have in order to assess the learning that we have is that actually we just want to bring in the lesson on air and being able to evaluate it when we already have the chance to go back to the normal, to the new normal that we're going to have. And we really hope that we could go back to our classrooms and be able to assess the learnings that we have, because even in the online platforms that we have, or even in the self-teaching modules that we create, in all of those things, we cannot really assure the 100% assessment whether we truly deliver the lesson. So we are still hoping, but we are looking for other ways to be able to assess our learners, because our goal right now is to really reach out to them, to give them the opportunity to learn despite the hardships that we are experiencing in bringing learning to them. That's the #1 priority for now. Assessing them would be something that we are going to address in a more in a more substantive way, wherein we could truly assess the learning, the true assessment, not just assessing whether we deliver the lesson or what, and just giving them something that they need to learn for now. Because we couldn't really give 100% assessment or 100% a tool that we could use through these platforms that could truly assess our students if they learn something or not. That would be all.
Thank you, Ivan. Again, if you have questions, please continue to enter them in. Before this session was not the only time you'd have an opportunity to ask one. But our next question is going to go to Toby and to any other panelists who want to follow up after Toby. But Toby, if you could respond to the question of how to engage parents or caregivers in online learning, especially for the younger aged learners.
Well, actually, there's multiple ways or approaches in terms of like using or encourage parents to the home-based education, because as Ivan already mentioned, that there's kind of like a segment of people in the society which the middle incomes or maybe high income can conduct home-based education. So then they have different sources of online training and online kind of like tools to use. But then there's a certain group which I would assume that they wouldn't have the digital literacy in terms of using a basic kind of even access to the internet. They still have difficulties as well. So basically, if we would like to encourage the distance learning to the parents in the poor community, firstly, we should encourage them to learn digital literacy, how to use a basic kind of like IT technical support on that. So then they will find a way that how they could relate themselves to this kind of new tools of learning. So basically we start from the ground. Yeah.
So I would just like to follow up from what Toby said, because here in the Philippines, we also want to address that part, because it's easier to do in the options that I've given, the on-air and the capsulized modules that we have, it's easier for the higher grades, like in high school or in university level. The challenge here that we're going to have is really addressing learning in the grade school levels or the elementary levels. So what we are going to do here is that we try to invest and try to really go back to the basics of delivering, because we have this term pedagogy, or giving or delivering learning to our learners, especially in the younger ages. So what we do is that try to invest more in learning that is sensory. So the modules that we have that we are going to send to them, or packets to these families, are more of sensory learning. So we try to simulate their vision, especially because the one thing that they could really do is like to look at pictures. We are going to send them pictures, and we are also trying to influence our parents to guide them through the lessons that we are going to give them in the packets that we have. And another challenge that we see is that there are also some parents that are not literate, or not even they cannot read or write. So some of the things that we are going to do is that to send audiobooks to these communities and be able to have recordings through these audiobooks, because we cannot provide standard appliances or standard gadgets for this, because it would be very expensive. But the audiobook would be the cheaper alternative, or the more inexpensive alternative that we are going to give them, because that's how we are going to address especially in multi-grade learning. Yeah, that would be all.
Thank you, Ivan. So we're going to go to probably what is one of the last questions, but I want to say that if you have a question that you chatted in that wasn't answered, please go ahead and chat it in again and ask to a specific one of our panelists, and perhaps that panelist will be able to respond. I see a lot of chatting going on, so that's also an alternative. So what will probably be our last question is a recent one that Aaron has added some to, but the question as to remote learning. So remote learning, an important piece is giving feedback to students. And it takes a lot of time when you're delivering feedback, especially during virtual meetings. So for any of the panelists, this is a question for you. If you can suggest an efficient strategy for giving feedback to your students to enhance their learning.
Hello. Okay, Kelsey. So I can go first just to share a little bit. For us, what we do to give feedback is, as I was sharing in the chat section, is that our main source of feedback is Google Classroom, where when they submit their work, so it could be some of them submit photos of their essays, some of them submit Google Docs documents for their writing, some of them also submit through Google Forms. So what we do is we also create quizzes using Google Forms, and then they do the quiz, and then we also give them feedback either through Google Forms or Google Classroom, such as through comments or things like that. We also use WhatsApp to chat with them. So if they have questions and it needs more like back and forth, we either chat with them on WhatsApp, or we use voice notes to explain. Because again, some of our students, for a lot of my students, either don't speak English at all, or they speak very little English. So voice notes are helpful to explain things that it's easier for them to understand. Because if you type, they don't understand very well when they read, but they listen, easier for them. So that's what we do in my school.
Okay, I have a bit to pitch in, just a little. So to give feedback, right, there are two kinds of feedback. One is I'm thinking of cities where the learners don't have good internet access, so they need to queue for that. You can do it collectively. So for a big class, you might want to record it like a little video to funnel them into different categories of feedback for their work, or you can give written feedbacks and then send it via email, right? So there are two forms. One is via video, the other one is via the email. Now, the other thing is, if you can afford as a teacher, if a classroom size is small, when I say small, it's about 30 to about 60, you can afford to have a chat, face-to-face chat for about 2 to 3 minutes. I think the FaceTime helped with it. So it's more like a C1 one-to-one person, and then the elaborate feedback you can send to them via email or something else. And I guess it's again the responsiveness. So if you're lucky enough to do a synchronous teaching, like what Aaron suggested, what we presented, that the kind of live interactions is something that's really useful. Over.
Thank you. And so we're going to go to one more short question, and this is for Kenya and Sandy. And there has been a lot of interest in your project, and perhaps we can share more resources with the group on the details of how you did your project. But just briefly, Kenya or Sandy, will you share what platforms you use to do this cultural exchange?
Yes, thank you, Kelsey. Well, in order to monitor our students' interactions, we started using Edmodo as a platform in order to introduce our students and introduce ourselves as teachers, and so that we could be in charge of their interactions, right? After the students had already met, what we did was that they organized smaller groups into a chat like WhatsApp. They started using WhatsApp because they thought it was a more effective way of communicating among learners, right? And they, as Sandy mentioned, one of the difficulties we've had is the time difference between both of our countries. So if students wrote a message through Edmodo, they would have to wait like 8 hours or 10 hours in order to see that message. So they started exchanging phone numbers, and they came out with using WhatsApp. So it's been more effective for them. But for us, in order to monitor what they're doing, how they're doing with their projects, with their storytelling ideas, we still use Edmodo.
Thank you, Kenya. And thank you everyone for your questions. Again, please feel free to continue to use that chat, and our panelists will answer questions as they can. Please feel free to start your video if you can, if you have a video, though please remain muted, and I'll call by group. It's nice to see so many faces finally. Some of them familiar, some of them new.
Hello, Kelsey.
Not sure who that came from because there's a lot of people, but hello.
I'm Ruben from Honduras.
Thank you, Ruben. Thank you, Ruben. Good to hear from you. Please stay muted. All of you, it's good to hear from you as well. And then I'll be calling on the groups here in a minute. So we are going to start with the group facilitated by Funman to share back whatever it was that was most important that you discussed in your group.
Right, unmuted. So one thing is, right, sometimes you get so excited, we forgot to unmute myself. Right? Yeah. It was a very good discussion. Various countries we have people from Mali, from Malaysia, from Thailand, and then from a Spanish-speaking country. And then some of them shared that in the workplace, right, how do you manage the people relationship? They will dedicate a session, most likely a Friday at 4 p.m. like a happy hour. So there's no beer, alcohol, but through Zoom, people talk about social catch up, their lives, and it's very casual, nothing about work at all. But that's how you sustain mental health. Imagine you want to share some, people call it the closet kind of conversation, have a drink, share some tea, and talk about it. Or you might want to even exercise together via Zumba. It's a good way to keep in touch with your colleagues. So, and the other one from Ali, he mentioned about how even WhatsApp, this kind of small engagement will bond people together in the current time. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Funman. And so next we'll go to my group. I believe, Adela, you were going to share something we discussed.
Yeah, thank you. Kelsey. So before we share about our experience during this time and this situation, and then mostly we share the same thing. It is about our students' well-being. Like before in our group, Kitty share about her students, postgraduate students feeling while doing the project and they need to stop because of this situation, and then how the students can be stressful and in this kind of situation. And then also for me, as I'm teaching a middle school and I'm mentoring the middle school students to do a project at the end of their school year, we have so many challenges also with the students. They feel unmotivated. It's hard for them like to do their finishing their project because they need to go to the school or maybe also to the community to connect with them. And I think this is we need to rethink about our agenda as an educators. Like, do we really need to push or encourage the students to be more productive in this time of situation? Like, or do we need to rethink about their own well-being, like to care and to let them settle and maybe give an option to finish the project maybe later until the situation is already get back to normal. Yeah.
Thank you, Adela. I also want to highlight that we are a couple minutes over. And so if you have to go, that's fine. But if you can stay, we'd also like to finish doing the sharing, and then I'll close with what will happen with follow-up. So next, if we can have someone from Aaron's group share.
Hey, Kelsey. So I'll be sharing from my group. And so we're very blessed in our group. We had quite a diverse group as well. We had 2 from Vietnam, 1 Armenian, 1 from Armenia, 1 from Laos, and 1 from Philippines. And some of the discussions that we had talked about, one person shared very, very interesting, I think. She works in a wildlife conservation nonprofit. And she said what she took back from this was learning how to engage her colleagues during online meetings. And I thought that was really interesting because, you know, we're looking at taking these lessons from the academic sphere into the work sphere. So I thought that was really, really interesting. The next thing would be having quizzes online as a means of assessing the lessons. So like a quiz at the end of a lesson to see whether students really understood or learned. One person also shared to make lessons as interactive as they can, such as using quizzes, such as Kahoot. Another also shared that it's very important that human factor, even though we are using online learning, we should also always be friendly and kind and understanding as we can be, because that human touch is still very important. And lastly, the last fellow shared that especially in areas that can't get internet, to look through offline learning. So kind of like what Ivan shared, even in university, so having notes with detailed annotations to help students. So yeah, that's from my group.
Thank you, Aaron. And next we would like to go to Kenya's group to share what was the one most important thing from your group.
Thank you, Kelsey. Well, in our group, we had people from India, Cambodia, Thailand, and we had like very interesting questions about all the different topics that were shared today. For example, one question was like related to inclusion in this type of online learning. For example, someone said, if being inclusive with remote learning, is it possible? Like in when you have to be aware of different students' learning styles, right? And different ways of assessing their learning. So this is, I thought it was a very interesting question. It's something that we have to think about when we are organizing our online lessons. Also, we discussed motivation, right? Motivation as being an important issue in virtual learning, because we have to try to keep our students engaged and motivated. There are so many myths regarding online learning, like we don't learn the same, or we don't learn at all. So we have to try to encourage our learners to keep motivated in this type of online learning, because it's possible that they find a model of learning that it adjusts to their own learning style. Another question that came up was like, how can teachers make sure that their students are satisfied with online learning, right? Like if they are not doing that just because they have to, right? More than that they are actually enjoying the learning process, right? And so in general, these questions are like very interesting regarding the motivation issue. I think I really loved Funman's presentation at the beginning, because he shared very interesting tips on how to engage learners, and this is related to how to keep them motivated, right? And also we have to vary our lessons, like use different apps and different ways of presenting the information, not just like the same way, right? In terms of being inclusive, I think it's similar. Like if students feel that the way they learn is represented, or something that is brought to the class, to the online lesson, is adapted to the way they learn, they feel more engaged and they feel more motivated to continue learning in the group.
Thank you, Kenya.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry to draw the conversation short, and I'm so glad that you had such a rich discussion in your group. We are over time, so I'm going to ask the remaining groups to share one thing from their group, and the next group would be Toby's group.
For our groups, there's several things that come up from our members. Is that for online learning, we cannot use a certain kind of particular tools for everything. We can use multiple tools. And also for the online learning, we should emphasizing on engagement and the time control. That's it.
Thank you, Toby. To Ivan's group.
Okay, for my group, I would like to welcome Jasser to share that one thing that we really collaborated in our group.
Can I share? Can I summarize?
Okay, go.
You can share one thing. Yes, thank you.
Okay, so in our group, that was also quite international. The people represented all countries: Honduras, Tunisia, Uzbekistan, Philippines, Indonesia. And what was interesting is that so lots of us having the same problem, that internet is the problem, the internet access is the problem. So that's why the governments in 3 countries have launched the TV, like they are using TV for offering the classes, education. And in my country particularly, it's used in the schools, that the primary and secondary education. And it's being used quite effectively, and people are quite happy that they haven't been left out.
Thank you, Jasur. And then last but certainly not least, I'd like to go to Sandy's group for one person to share one thing.
Okay, so yeah, our group also discussed similar things like the other groups, but I'd like to come with the points that I also took from another webinar. The speaker mentioned 5 things that teachers need to reconsider in post-COVID instructional pedagogy. The first one is that teachers become more technological. Everybody mentions tools, applications for their teachings. And then the second one is more engaging, because they expect that by using technological tools, applications, they can engage the students. But the other 3 important things that we can remember is that in terms of assessment, the first one is to be more flexible, because the students are facing difficulties just like us. And the second one is more realistic, and the third one is more humans. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy, and thank you all for sharing briefly. This time has gone by so quickly, though I've enjoyed every minute of it with you. So last, I would like to talk about follow-up And we have a slide here. We don't want this to be the end of the conversation because this is an ongoing challenge and an ongoing discussion. Each of you should be in a private Facebook group. If you have a question about that, please email Randy Edwards, who's been your primary email contact. But the Mansfield Center within a few days will be posting some of the resources and suggestions that you shared, as long as some prompts for maybe activities that you would like to do as follow-up. You'll also be receiving an email from us with a very short survey from us about your feedback. This is really important because it's our first alumni webinar and we plan to do these into the future. And as educators, I know that you appreciate feedback and the ability to learn, especially when you do something the first time. So thank you for paying attention to that email and that survey. And lastly, I would just like to thank our wonderful panelists for sharing their expertise today, for all of you who joined and also shared. We appreciate all of our alumni, and it, during a challenging time, is so uplifting to hear about all you're doing to support your communities in our world collectively. So thank you, everyone, and I look forward to continuing to be in touch.